How we doing, guys? Eamon here, Infrared Heating Ireland. Have a bit of time here, so let's talk infrared. Generally, a lot of people don't know much about infrared heating. We've been selling infrared since 2010. In the last couple of years, with the drive for electricity to heat your home, office, apartment, whatever you have, there's more and more interest in infrared. If somebody hasn't seen infrared before, they maybe are a bit skeptical, which is understandable because something new to the market obviously creates doubt. People ask if it's so good, how come we haven't seen it before? I've spoke to my electrician, went into spoke to builder, friends, and they said I've never heard of infrared. So the good news is that it is very popular across Europe. Not so much popular in Ireland because lack of understanding. So with the video content that we've put online, the customer base that we have, it allows us to educate people about infrared. Now, where can you install infrared panels? Well, 80 or 90% of applications are successful. There's some buildings that we don't recommend installing infrared in. These are D-rated properties, poorly insulated houses, because if you install infrared in these types of properties, they won't be effective. In other words, they'll burn too much electricity, so they become inefficient. So obviously the better the house is insulated, the more efficient the system will run. Most panels that we install are into the likes of average insulated houses. Why? Because people go online, they find out what we're doing. A lot of properties that are being built from new still go towards the heat pump because it's being pushed by SCAI, being pushed by government, and that's understandable. And then there's more of an understanding about heat pumps than infrared panels to heat your new build. The answer to that is that we have done new builds with our infrared panels and with great success. We also see our partners across Europe installing in new builds, and they also have good success. So let me talk briefly about this successful installation using infrared panels. So what we look for is a number of different factors before we recommend the sizing of the heater for the room. Or the rooms in the property. So we look at ceiling height, floor area, is there insulation on the floor, number of exterior walls, how much glass is in the room. So basically paint a picture of the room, and then that allows us to recommend the wattage required in that room. So obviously a newer property will operate at maybe 30 watts a square meter, and an older property could be up to 80 watts a square meter, right? So that means that the less insulation is in the floor, the walls, more glazing, it's going to cost more to run the system. The better insulated the property, the less it's going to cost. So where we want to do is that this either could require 1, 2 or 3 panels depending on the size of the room. So we'll specify each room, give you a spec of the project. We use software which is being developed by us and our partners. And basically we put in the room sizes and it will tell you how much wattage is required for that room. So there's a couple of drop down menus and we paint the picture for the client, and then we send that to the client. The client then says, yeah, I want to look at infrared. We also talk through the controller. Now I've made other videos about how the controller works. We call it IR Sun Regulator, and this controller will regulate heat. Now it doesn't regulate heat by resistive power, it regulates heat through the software within the controller. So where you want to get with an installation with infrared is that there's 2 ways to heat a room. Some people heat in the morning and in the evening if it's a bedroom, and then if you're occupying that room most of the time, you're actually better off leaving on the heater. So when the panels are spec'd correctly and the controller is able to do its job, the system will run as efficient as it can. If you undersize the heater works too much and it uses more electricity, and this is a problem. So this is why the software we use will allow us to calculate the wattage required per square meter and per room, and then we can put together a spec for you. To talk a little bit about the panels and the controllers. So we have two different options available to our customers. We have a panel with a 15-year guarantee, and we have a panel with a 12-year guarantee. Now, people will always say to us, but I can get your product cheaper online or whatever, or I can talk to your competitor and I can get the cheaper product. Yes, it's cheaper, but everything is cheap for a reason. So our panels either have a 12 or a 15-year guarantee, and what makes a good infrared panel is that the quality of the heating element inside. So the thicker the cable, it means it lasts longer. So with respect, we would have opened up panels from our competitors and we see the size of the wire inside is a sliver of a wire. It lasts maybe 15 years. It has a 5-year guarantee. Some panels will have a 10-year guarantee. But our heating element is manufactured in Germany. It's made in Europe. It's a powder coated finish, chemical free. It's natural insulation at the back of the heater. So the heating element is sandwiched. And it heats to, some of our panels get to 75, 80 degrees, and other panels get to closer to 90 or 100 degrees. So it's all relevant to price. So some people are happy to pay a bit less to get a 12-year guarantee and a 25-year lifespan, and others want a 15-year guarantee and a 35-plus-year lifespan, and that's fine. So we give two options to the client. Then we look at anything else there. Yeah, so there's no fixings visible when the panel is installed. It's a chemical-free powder coating. It's very, very good quality stainless steel, and the good thing is that, you know, we talk about this as circular economy now, where they want us to reuse and recycle, and infrared fits in very well there because the amount of components to make the panel are very few, and that means then that all the gear, all the product is made in Europe. So from when it gets from Europe to your home, you're having a smaller impact than maybe going with an alternative wet system, because, you know, an electric rad has oil in it and that has to be recycled, and it's more harmful to the environment. There's more makeup of the electric wall heater, the heat pump. There's more components which are brought from all over the world. The infrared panel is a simple product. And then you look at the controller. So the controller, that there's two types of controllers. One controller type that you see in the market is like on, off, on, off. So it's always reacting to the room temperature. So if you're using a standard stat, not our stat, a standard stat, you turn on the heating, it heats the room, then it turns off the heater. The heater gets cold. That's not the best way to control your panel because it's not running as efficient as it can. When you use this regulator type controller, which means it has different software developed by us and our partners, Ecosen in Slovenia, that means then that you are stabilizing the heat. So the panel never turns off. So it's always on, either putting out, for example, 50, 40, 30, 20%, depending on how the panel needs to work to heat the room. So it's a different software, and this development of the software means you save 20% in energy consumption by using a standard controller on and off. There's other features in this controller. It's a touchscreen device. It's designed for the European market. There's copy and paste function. You can lock the screen. You can put in the wattage that's in each room in your property, and then it'll record energy consumption. So with respect, we've nowhere to hide in terms of our clients that are using our product. They can tell us how much energy they're using, and very quickly, this information can be found out. You can also put in what you're paying for a unit of electricity, and it'll tell you each and every day how much electric is being consumed in the room. So in a given month, you can see how much energy each room is using. So we've access, with customers' permission, of loads of different customers that are using our product, and I can show other customers to say, look, here's a C-rated house in Ireland. It's a dormer type. It's 180 square meters, and this is what the customer is spending. Now, so that's the controller. So we're very pleased with the controller. Moving on then, maybe comparing to the heat pump, because everybody's talking about the heat pump. So what we're happy to see now in the market is that people have been using the heat pump and they've something to compare to. In the past, maybe there was less known about the heat pump and people jumped into the heat pump, but now they realize that it requires maintenance. It's a system that's either on, so you can't really turn it off. It'll throttle back, but it has moving parts. You have to get it serviced every year. It lasts for 15 years. So people don't really put that costing into the overall cost. So if you compare infrared, it's less to install, there's no maintenance on it, and it has a longer lifespan. Yes, come in. Sorry, thought somebody at the door. It has a longer lifespan. So, lost my train of thought. Yes, come in, come in. So, sorry, somebody at the door there. So with infrared, you have no maintenance, no hassle, 15-year guarantee, 35-year lifespan. So that has to be put into the overall costing to run the system. So now we have studies to show that we're running our infrared panel system cheaper on a monthly basis to the heat pump. And this is in an A-rated property because the heat pump is being pushed into modern houses that are at least a B or an A-rated. And when you compare the infrared, we are running the system at a similar cost, but where the infrared also has more advantages is that there is no other costs involved. So you don't have to maintain our system. You don't have to call out an engineer every year to service the system. And at the moment, the reason the heat pump's being pushed is because it has this coefficient, which means it takes 1 kilowatt of energy and converts it into 3 kilowatts of output. Now that the factors there is outdoor temperature, etc., that'll determine how efficient the system runs. So in the winter, it wouldn't run as efficient as it would run maybe where it's 10 or 12 degrees outside. If it drops to 0 degrees, then the efficiency reduces slightly. That's why you spend more to run your heat pump in the colder spell that we would have. So the infrared, you don't have to worry about that. So also the argument there is that infrared is using 1 kilowatt of energy and putting 1 kilowatt into the room, and the reason it's not recognized as much is because a lot of our energy produced in Ireland comes from gas and oil, 70%, 30% is renewable. So there is an argument to say that with the efficiency of the heat pump, that the infrared is not as efficient. So that's fine for on paper and to reduce emissions because the efficiency is there with the heat pump. But for the customer, they're paying more to install the heat pump and paying more to maintain the heat pump and paying more over the lifespan of the heat pump versus the infrared. So the infrared for the customer is costing less to install and it has more advantages. So it depends what perspective and what way you're looking at the heat pump versus the infrared. What else is there? So that's kind of what you're comparing to. When you compare to the convector wall heater, well, as I've said earlier, you have liquid inside, you have the stat built into the some heaters, you have the stat built into the actual heater, which means that if there's a problem with the stat, you tend to have to take out everything, whereas the panel is on the ceiling separate to the controller, so you can maintain into the future a bit better. Also as well, are you getting the ambient temperature in the room using a convector heater because the stat is built into the actual rad? That's questionable. Some have a separate thermostat that I've seen that are not that maybe user friendly. They're battery operated, so you're changing batteries. So all these wireless things, well, sometimes people say, is your product wireless? And it's not, but there's a reason for that, because number one, how it regulates, and number two, that you're always changing batteries, is connected to Wi-Fi, because you can operate it on the phone as well. So yes, it's a bit more hassle at the beginning because you have to get a wire from the panel to the controller, but in terms of longevity, hassle-free thereafter, it's just take it from us. We've made these mistakes going wireless, you know, trying to tick the box with the customer, but it doesn't work. So the electric wall heater, that works by convection, which means it heats the air, whereas the infrared panel will radiate and use the surfaces to heat the room. So there is a slight argument, jumping back to the heat pump, that if you are the infrared uses the surfaces to heat the room. So that means that it's like an invisible ping pong ball. It radiates from the panel. The panel heats within a minute, radiates onto the surfaces, and those surfaces absorb the heat. And then they increase by 2 degrees. And that flicks the heat back into the room, and then the temperature increases, which means that the panel doesn't have to work as hard. With the convector type heater, because you're heating the air in the room, air moves around, doors open, the heat moves from one room to the other, which means that the convector heater is always starting at ground zero. Yes, it can bring up the temperature depending on, there's a couple of factors there, but my point is that the infrared doesn't have to work as hard because it's also using the surfaces to heat the room, whereas a convector heater is always heating the air. The other thing as well is that, did you ever walk into a room where you can feel the heat, sense the heat? Did you ever sit in a chair and the heating is on, it's 22, 23 degrees in the room, and you kind of feel a bit tired? What's happening there is you're burning the oxygen in the room, which means you feel tired, whereas with infrared heating, it's more like a sun heat, so it's a lighter, more gentle heat. Now, we've also seen customers saying to us, we can't obviously endorse, well, we can only tell what customers have said to us. So we have had some customers that would have found that they would have had allergies like asthma, sensitivity, and they would have found their symptoms would have improved, moving from convection, maybe a radiator on a wall heated with oil, or a electric rad on the wall, moving to infrared. They would have found it's a nicer heat, and their respiratory issues would have improved. We also have clients with arthritis, so people use infrared saunas. Infrared saunas are good for the human body. They'll absorb the heat into the body, and it improves the blood circulation. And again, you can do your own research on that. But we've had clients that, since they've installed infrared, that their arthritis has improved. So we've seen all this. Sometimes people say, well, is there any harmful effects to infrared? There's two types of infrared. So when you speak about infrared, you speak about a wavelength. So the infrared ray that's coming from the sun would be a different type of infrared ray that would be coming from the infrared panel. And they're of a different size wavelength. So the infrared that's coming from the panel is actually not harmful to the human body, not harmful to your eyes. Few people have said that. Does it kind of burn your eyes or affect your eyes? The answer to that is no. So infrared is totally harmless, and we would say that actually infrared is good for the human body. So that's a comparison. So look, that'll give you an oversight, and these are just a general conversation that we would have with all our clients. So what we can conclude with is that infrared does work very well with the correct quality product, with the correct controller. The infrared is a very good solution. It is going to become more popular. One thing that's just come into my mind that I want to touch on before I finish up, that we have a lot of C-rated houses in Ireland which are average insulated. So here's an example of a client that we would have dealt with. So a couple bought a house. It's a C-rated house. They got their builder out. Their builder gave them a price of 45,000 euros to upgrade it from a C rated to a B rating. They required extra insulation, pumped walls. Some part of the house required external insulation. They had to compensate for insulation in the floor, so they had to put triple glazed windows, and that's big cost to the client. Then the client would have had to install the heat pump, which I think they got a quote of around 12 grand. So there's 45 grand, 57,000 euros that the customer was quoted to put in a heat pump. And we went in and priced it, I think it was around 8 or 9,000. So we put in an 8 or 9,000 infrared system. Installation was around 1,500 quid, so around 10 grand. And the client is spending around 2,300 per year on electricity to heat their home. They're a retired couple. They heat the rooms most of the day. They might reduce temperature in spare bedrooms, hallways maybe 18, but in their living area 20, 22 degrees. And the client is spending 2,300 per year. Now, if they had to spend that 50 odd thousand putting in the heat pump and insulation, they would have reduced from probably 2,300 to maybe at least 1,500 a year in energy costs. So to save 700 euros a month, they would have had to spend 50 odd thousand. So the argument is that that client leaves the money in the bank, puts in the infrared, and is happy to spend a bit extra per month to run the system, and then put that extra money, that instead of spending with the builder and the heat pump guy, they would have put it into solar panels, and that's what they would have done. So this client is very, very pleased. There's a lot of properties out there like that are a C-rated house, and they don't know what to do. They're using oil. Oil is not, there's no interest to stabilize oil prices. They're focusing on electricity, so they want us to go electricity. So just keep that in mind as well, that if you're that type of customer, that type of property owner, this is what you're faced as well. So come and talk to us. So what we'll finish up with is that if you're that typical customer we just spoke about, if you have an apartment, a house, you're building on an extension, come and talk to us. We can give you all the data you need to make your decision. But what we would say is that don't talk to people that don't understand the product. Talk to the specialists that understand infrared. And they will give you the answers and give you the data you need to make the decision. So for more information, check out our website. We're called infraredheat.ie. We're based in Ireland, soon to branch into other countries. We work with Ecosend. They're based in Slovenia, and they've franchises all over Europe as well. This heating system is becoming more popular because our goal is to educate and sell the benefits to using infrared into the future, for a sustainable heating system here in Ireland and other countries. So thanks for watching and have a great day.